Day 5 of the test, an emphatic win for England in Chennai. Jimmy Anderson leads from the front with only Gill and Kohli making notable scores, with the Indian middle order scorecard reading like binary code. It's the Murali Daily. Get in touch with us on Murali End on Twitter, Insta, Facebook. Of course, you can use the hashtag Uncle Johnson as well. Your Murali Enders today are Tommy Stewart, Owen Blackhurst, Lizzy Ammon from The Times making a debut, and myself, Mark Machado. Guys, I'm not going to lie, I'm absolutely stoked at the nature of England's win today, but also incredibly surprised as well.
Yeah, I mean,
surprised.
I'll admit, I definitely didn't see that coming at all. I thought the series might end up 3-0 to India. There might be a draw in there. I genuinely, I mean, I'm a woman of a certain age, and I grew up watching England in the 90s. You know, it kind of scars you forever that you never think. Even when we got them 7 down today, I still thought, no, there's a chance that they'll peg it out for a draw. But it was phenomenal. I'm buzzing for it.
Lizzy, I'm of a similar vintage, and I've got all that the scars from the 90s as well. And I think what it does, I mean, when Kohli started to get some runs, then you started to think, oh shit, he could do it here. He's got the capacity to do it. But I think what it makes a mockery of more than anything is some of the rubbish around the declaration yesterday. And there's so much nonsense about it, and it probably goes hand in hand with a lot of the problems there is with journalism, present company accepted, is that there has to be a definite opinion, and it's right, and that's it, right? And there's no nuance, there's no debate.
I have to say, it's ex-cricketers who are the worst. I mean, I'm not mentioning any names, Shane Warne or Matthew Warne, but yeah, I mean, they're the worst.
I was going to if you weren't.
Well, I think you're right, but there's a reason you're listening. Athers did a column yesterday, and he talked about it as if it was a debate. And he said, I would have maybe done this, or maybe we could have had some different catching positions. But he didn't say it as, this is the only way you can do it, because that's how I would have done it. And my opinion's right. And things move on. You know, they're not. I think Joe Root made a comment afterwards today where he said, no one spent as long on that pitch as me.
Chucked a bit of shade. He did. He chucked a bit of shade their way, saying, yeah, I've been on this pitch longer than anyone in the entire match. I know when it's going to deteriorate. I knew when it was going to deteriorate. I knew what I was doing, lads. Shut off.
Michael Vaughan somehow found a way to tweet saying like something about it being all about Sheffield. And,
52 test wins as England captain for Sheffield Collegiate now, he said.
Yeah, exactly. And I listened to the TMS documentary on Joe Root for his 100th cap, and I mean, it probably is true to some extent. But Michael Vaughan said literally every Test match still, and like every day of every Test match, pretty much Joe Root will text him saying, "Oh, is there anything I could have done better as a captain and stuff?" And you know, as much I'm not going to bother slagging off Michael Vaughan, great player, great captain, but. I mean, maybe indirectly, I just did do that. But
do you know what that is, though? That's just Joe Root managing up, isn't it? We've all been in positions where there's previous people who've had that role who just feel that, you know, they've got to somehow stay in touch with it. When actually, realistically, I mean, Michael Vaughan is totally out of kilter with most of the cricket viewing public now, I'd imagine.
I think the main problem with views like that, right, is that because they're so definite and so trenchant about it, it fuels a lot of the nonsense that goes on with social media, with all the dickheads then jumping on it and using it as a stick to beat Root with. Do you know what I mean? And the criticism goes turbo, and then all of a sudden people are criticising Joe Root as a captain when really there isn't a lot to criticise. So it just is.
No, I mean, why on earth, if you're Joe Root, would you even think about giving India a sniff in this match? You dominated for 4 days. And his decision to bat on meant there were only 2 outcomes today, weren't there, really? There were too many runs to get. And also, England have been burnt by that whole declaration thing before, you know, not least last time in China. You know, you saw that India scored 700 and whatever it was. And there's just, you wouldn't want to give India any sniff. So he basically batted them out of the game. And if that means you have to take a draw, you have to take a draw. But the worst thing you want, particularly as England have always been accused of being slow starters on tours, is to be dominating for 4 days and then suddenly let India or Kohli or, you know, Pujara bat all day and Kohli bat round him. And before you know it, you've lost.
I'll be honest, right? I was a little bit nervous about England's lack of declaration yesterday. And I felt that actually it would have been a shame for this test to have ended in no result. And I was worried that that's what was going to happen, because I think a massive part of it, and I know I've banged on about this for 5 days now, is game management. And obviously, I sit about in the spare room in my mum's house making podcasts and know absolute jack shit about cricket compared to Joe Root and Chris Silverwood. So I should always defer to their better judgment.
Or Lizzy, to be honest. Let's
Yeah.
none of us know.
Well, I mean, you know, I was the scorer at Sheffield Collegiate when I was growing up, so you know, I'm going to take some credit for their captaincy.
What about the
You're
really...
going to tweet about it saying Joe Root was texting you. He's like, I remember you being the scorer. That's why I'm where I
used
am
to
today.
push him in a buggy round the boundary. I mean, if that doesn't make you feel, I know, if that doesn't make you feel old, when the person you used to push in a buggy is now England captain and a dad, and you're friends with his mum. I mean,
amazing.
Amazing.
I just wanted to say quickly, Owen, something you brought up on our WhatsApp chat. You know, which one day one of you will win the competition to be a part of for a day. But you said Owen brought up the point that we were one of the few media outlets. I'm calling us a media outlet. I am calling us that now from today. We didn't jump on the declaration thing, did we? Really? Like, it was so overblown, and I suppose it's the whole thing with like news and ex-players and stuff who need to just get clickbait and an instant sort of story and reaction. And can I also say on that, I absolutely loved Stuart Broad fucking like going in on Warren and Vaughan on Twitter. Just that, like, he never sleeps, that lad, does he? He just,
you don't mess with Brody these days, do you? You just that man, badass.
He'll throw a huff in the diary room, won't he? Like he did last summer.
Yeah, but also just because that's what Jason Gillespie and Glenn McGrath did 15, 16 years ago, doesn't mean it's right for now. But what about the really serious business of today, though? What do we think about Shubman Gill's bat with no stickers? Because I think it's one of the best things I've ever seen. As a fellow member of the No Stickers on My Bat Club, he's a very impressive man, and it's a beautiful looking bat.
Have you not got a bat sponsor, Owen?
Well, I took the sponsors off my bat. I took the stickers off my bat, Lizzy, because the league I play in, I walked out with a brand new Kohli that I went down to the factory to get. And I was just getting chirped all the time by the wicketkeeper saying he must think he's fucking $1 million with that. So I took the stickers off because I wasn't scoring any runs.
But you weren't getting paid for the bat sponsorship.
Absolutely not. I paid. No one's paying me. No one's paying me to use their bat.
I think you're drawing more attention though, Owen, going more stickers. Like that's pretty. Like that's just you saying at village level. Like I'm waiting for a sponsor. Yeah.
I would like to see Murali End get to the point where we can sponsor someone's bat. I mean, they don't have to be like an England or Australia or India test player. Maybe someone just playing in the Lanka Premier League. Or
what about my son plays at Barnes under-14s? Will that do?
Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah.
We should go get a load of Murali
Sam's
End
chicken. If you're listening, pump some more money in.
What's going to happen with the second test? What's going to happen with the
I think
rotation?
we should.
Because how in the name of Bob Willis do you rotate Jimmy Anderson out of the team now? You can't, can you?
Well,
Can't.
It's an interesting question, Owen, because you know, I'm as critical of England's rotation policy as the next man, and I thought it was very odd that Johnny Bairstow was sent home. I thought, well, that's just weird. And then when Zach Crawley got injured, I was like, well, you've shot yourselves in the foot there, haven't you? Because you've not got a number 3 because he's got injured because he fell over on the marble floor. Incidentally, there's a marble floor in the England dressing room, not so much in the Indian dressing room. I mean, are we crying sabotage or not?
I want to know how often's the England one getting polished? That's the real key question.
Well, they put some carpet down now, but I thought, you know, wow, they've shot themselves in the foot. But actually, they keep consistently getting these calls right on rest and rotation. And actually, our selectors are pretty good at the moment because they are backed by such an incredible amount of both data, and, you know, we don't want to get obsessed by that, but the fitness, nutrition, you know, the strength and conditioning guys, they know exactly what they're doing about bowling loads. They know when you're at your peak. They know when you're not supposed to be. You know, they know all this stuff. So when they made the decision, it's not just because, oh, Jimmy's a bit old. It's because they monitor their workloads and know when you're loading your peak and when you're kind of need the time off. So it's really difficult. And I suspect Jimmy, because he's so desperate to go to the Ashes, and he will be desperate to go to the Ashes, He won't actually mind if he's rested, because he gets it. Nobody knows his body more than Jimmy Anderson, and he knows that you have to be really sensible. Much as he'd love to be on the park all the time, he knows he's a sensible old man. So I really do think that actually, if they do rotate him out, they'll be doing it because they have monitored how he's reacted, how he's come through, etc. But they might not rest him. They might rest Jofra. I know Jofra's just had a rest, but Jofra has a much tougher ask, I think, because of what he's trying to get out of unresponsive pitches. And let's not forget, there's a whole heap of other people on the tour, aren't there? There's like 1 million of them out there. So yeah, it's really difficult. Obviously, Butler's going home now. He's getting on a plane. Off he pops. And I have to say, I think in Sri Lanka and in this test, Butler has kept so well, particularly standing up to the stumps, and he's not always been amazing at that. Standing back, fine, good at that. But actually, I think he's barely put a foot wrong. Took a couple of great catches today. Really sharp catches.
Yeah, I think Jofra probably stays in for the next test because Wood's not coming back until the third test, is he? So if you look at contributions all round, which I thought was the great thing about this performance, is that Jofra did his bit when he needed to, which was castling both the openers in the first innings, and then probably inflicting a few psychological scars on Ashwin in the second innings. So that's probably going to be his job for the next test. I see there's been a bit of chat for Moeen for Bess, because you probably need to get Moeen at some point. Otherwise, he's just going to be carrying the drinks.
Bess was chucking too many pies for me as well. Like I know we've had. I've got. I suppose we spoke about on the last or the one before about Bess potentially, being like them putting a lot of faith in him and him being like the next kind of swan and maybe not a late developer because he's in the team early, but I don't know. Like for me, like Leach is and obviously we'll play 2 spinners and 3 with all-rounder Joe Root, but
It's funny though, isn't it, Tom? The reason that Don Bess was in the side last summer, not just because he's a promising young cricketer, was because of his because of being the sweatiest man in the team, and it looks like the excess of sweat on his hands might have done for him in that second innings, because that's why he's struggling with his lengths. It's not because he's a rubbish bowler; it's because he must be really struggling to grip the ball.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's, these conditions are really alien to him, and he's 23 and he's barely played any cricket in his life, never mind just recently. He's learning on the job, and this is tough going. But I think one of the things with Bess is that he learns really quick. But the thing with Moeen is that he's had, he took that self-imposed break from Test cricket and then took the decision to come back to Test cricket. And having done that, if you leave him in the changing room, he's not going to play Test. Do you know what I mean? He's going to go, why am I doing this?
Exactly.
So
Lizzy, just going back to on the broad thing, like, do you subscribe from what you know and who you spoke to and stuff, like a lot more, a lot more than us and have a lot more information than us? Is it like the Broad and Anderson thing? Is it now pretty much definitively Broad or Anderson, or is there room for the rest of this series and Australia for Broad and Anderson in the same team?
I don't think it's definitive at all. I think at home, obviously in the summer, when we got that massive, we got 5 tests against India in the summer, and they're going to be, India actually travel pretty well these days. I don't know, was it 2012? There was that series they came, and it looked like that. I mean, there was one man, was Dravid, wasn't it? There was the only one who did anything. It wasn't even just that they were shit. They just looked like they didn't give a shit. So, because they didn't like English conditions. But it's so different under Kohli. They travel well. They're well drilled, etc., etc. So those 5 tests are going to be really tough in the summer. And it all gears towards the Ashes. But also, we all want to see Broad and Anderson play for as long. I mean, we are blessed, aren't we? We're living in a Messi Ronaldo age, this is they are Messi and Ronaldo, aren't they? So it makes sense to want to elongate their careers as much as they can. It should make sense for all England supporters. Really, we should be going, whatever you need to do to make sure we can watch them as many years as possible in the future, then that's what needs to be done.
And I think one thing, and like obviously, I suppose working on tailenders and that, I'm obviously very like biased towards Jimmy, but like there's no need to be, because like he's a genius. But There was
Bit
an
after
article Jonathan Liu did, like I think he's a brilliant writer, but he did last summer after all the tests, or after all the cricket, basically saying like we wasted a summer by playing Broad and Anderson. We should have been. I'm saying it like, you know, this is long story short, and this is unfair. It's a really good article. It's an interesting read, but I don't know. I felt it was very contrary and like kind of an article for the sake of an article, but just saying we should have been bleeding people. We should have been playing Woodmore and stuff. And it's just like, no, you just, for me, you play your best team, and those two are still on form. They're getting better and better, to be honest. And we won everything last summer. We're looking incredible again. So why would you, like, they're not done yet. So why would you drop them just for the sake of rotation or playing new people?
Are you suggesting then that you end up in a place where potentially, obviously, you know, there's loads of ifs and buts, you'd be happy with going into the Ashes with them both starting?
Yeah, I would, because I think they're our two best bowlers.
Yeah, and I think also, you know, your balance of attack in Australia will be different. You'll have 4 seamers, won't you?
Yeah.
So there's room for an Ollie Robinson, and Ollie Robinson's, you know, keep an eye on him. He's a real talent, and bowls, you know, proper heavy ball. And Ollie Stone, provided he can stay fit. You know, you've got Jofra, Ollie Stone, Ollie Robinson. You know, there's lots of them. And what's great is about the younger players, James Bracey, Ollie Robinson, you know, a couple of others, being in this squad with them this winter means that they're just learning and learning and learning and learning. And, you know, they're sponging it up. And Jimmy and Stuart are so good at passing on, you know, knowledge. And not just to England. You know, we saw in the last summer, didn't we, that Stuart was very happy to talk to the young Pakistani seamer whose name has totally escaped me, because I don't really remember my own name at the moment.
For the record, ladies and gentlemen, all you listeners, Lizzy's had, what do you think, Lizzy? 4 hours sleep in 3 or 4 days?
3 days or something. I don't know. What day is it? What year is it?
I think it's an excellent point. It's an excellent point you make about the players soaking it up, because we've got to remember Jofra's 13 or 14 tests in now. The more time he and the younger bowlers can spend with Broad and Anderson on the pitch and talking to them, you saw him and Jimmy talking through the plans at the beginning of play today. He's already got too much expectation on his shoulders, and the more he can learn from Jimmy Anderson, because he looks like a quick learner. I think I'd be more than happy as well to see them both over there, because as you say, the variety of the attack. Stokes is another seamer. We'll only play one spinner, I think. And what Tommy said, the context of that piece last year doesn't make any sense, because Anderson's figures are getting better with every year.
Yeah.
If his figures were tailing off and he was down to bowling 70 miles an hour, it'd make sense, but it doesn't make any sense. And Broad's figures are getting better as well. So I thought it was nonsense. I remember reading it and thinking it's been written for a headline.
Yeah. And I'm not sure how long we've got left, but I just want to say, this is, I don't know, just headline, very simple thing to say, but I'm watching it at the time. Like I was up all night as well. Me and Lizzy were messaging a bit, and I had a deadline a couple of hours ago, which I managed to get done.
You stopped making any sense about 7:30 this morning, Tommy.
Yeah, no, I was looking at my tweets from here, and I was misspelling everything. And I've not even got drink as an excuse, because I've stopped drinking for the time being. But that over, Jimmy's over. We all know the over I'm talking about, but like with basically 3 identical balls. Like I was there for Callis and Flintoff at Edgbaston in 07 or 08. I can't remember which, but anyway, that was, you know, live. I'll probably never see a better over than that, like ever. But that I remember the second wicket, like last night, this morning. I was just drinking my tea. I was just like, you know, and you just flabbergasted. I was just like, what the fuck is he doing? Like on this. Just purely from skill, like, you know, this whole Jimmy Clouderson bollocks that fans of, you know, other teams say, it's just absolute bullshit, because he's just getting it to reverse swing, like turn around corners, just on pure skill and like seam position. And it's incredible. And one more thing on Jimmy, which like it's on my Instagram, to be fair. And he, you know, he was more than happy for me to share it, but he's also a stunning man, because he sorted my dad out with a signed England shirt, match issue England shirt for Christmas for my dad. So I'd messaged Jimmy. He hadn't replied for a few weeks. I was like, oh no, like this is a bit embarrassing. Anyway, out of nowhere, he just messaged me like a week or 2 before Christmas. He's like, hey Tommy, what's your address? I've got training. So I was like, oh right, why? He's like, I've got a shirt for your dad. He's like, what do you want me to write on it? So I said, can you write from a Lancashire legend to like dear Ian, from a Lancashire legend to a Yorkshire legend, go well, like lots of love, Jimmy Anderson or whatever. And he wrote, from a Lancastrian to a Yorkshire legend, like, so he wouldn't even call himself a legend. And I was like, fucking hell. Anyway, I pop out to the shops to go and get him a card, a Christmas card for him and his family. My brother rings me, like me and my brother living together at the time. He's like, Jimmy Anderson's at the door. I was like, fuck off. He was half an hour early. I fucking missed him. And I was just like, I was in tears. But yeah, anyway, it's a proper match issue shirt, like signed. It's got like my dad cried. Like he was my favorite player growing up, and my dad as well. Like, yeah, so just like not just what a player, what a human being. Like, I'm sure you come across him, Lizzy, and like could say the same. As quiet and grumpy as he can be.
Yeah, and and he can be grumpy with the press. They can all be grumpy with the press. But to be fair, I'd be grumpy with the press if I had to sit in front of us gnarly old hacks at the end of a day's play. But on my 40th birthday, it was coincided with the Professional Cricketers Association end of season do, which I don't know if you have ever heard about the PCA do, but it is messy. I mean, it is the end of season blowout, and it is properly. I mean, it's messy. And I got drunk and didn't handle turning 40 very well, and I cried on his shoulder about, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, the next day, there's a press release comes out from the ECB saying Jimmy Anderson will miss the beginning of whatever series it was because he's hurt his shoulder. I was like, no.
Amazing.
Oh,
but,
God.
I mean, we just need to sit and go, wow, we're blessed, aren't we? I mean, this is just incredible,
Greatness.
I mean, clearly, not as good as Darren Stevens, but if we're talking old bowlers, Jimmy's not quite made it to Darren Stevens legend status just yet. But it's, I mean, when you just kind of make that noise, and that over's going to need to come with a, not before the watershed guidance, isn't it? Because it was just pornographic.
I saw your tweet saying that. Just before we go, Lizzy, what we do with new guests usually is offer a platform to like just get anything generally about cricket or anyone. You want to just get anything you want to get off your chest. So we'll do it at the end rather than at the start. Is there anything you want to say about or bitch about the world of cricket, historically or currently?
Or out with the world of cricket? It could be anything, really.
Anything.
Well, generally, I think the world of cricket is in a good place. I mean, we are seeing so many exciting series, aren't we? I mean, whilst all this madness was going on in Chennai, there was that incredible West Indies chase, wasn't there? And that's coming off the back of India beating Australia in Australia, and Tim Payne under a bit of pressure and Justin Langer under a bit of pressure, and that's always good to see, isn't it? But generally, I think, cricket is in a pretty good place. There's always. I'm no fan of the 100 either. The 100's coming up this year. At some point, I'm sure you'll get me on to talk about it.
We're hoping to somehow get monetize our participation with the 100. So as it stands, if anyone is listening, we are very in favour of it. And
are you very in favour?
My brother,
good.
It's
going to be brilliant.
We want to be the only media.
Amazing. I mean,
we want to be the only media outlet who's fully backing it. My brother works for New Balance and he's quite involved with it. Yeah. So. I'm going to get a lot of free tickets anyway.
To be fair to the 100, I think the event itself, the tournament itself, will be fun. It'll be great fun. It'll be really good to watch. My issues are to do with slightly more boring cannibalising of the counties. Blah, 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 blah. So, but yeah, I think cricket's in a good place. And if I'm here to plug something, then subscribe to the Times because you get to read Mike Atherton.
You're great writing as well.
Yeah, I'm way down the pecking order.
And Lizzy Ammon.
And Simon Wilde and Steve James and lots, subscribe to the Times. We've got an offer, a month free or something. I don't know. God, I've not done that very well, have I? God, honestly.
All right, I'll do it.
My editor will be really proud of me.
I'll do it.
Final word on Jack Leach.
I'll do it. I'll do it straight after this.
Leach. I mean, there was a tweet from Barney Roney. Check it out. But who said, pleasingly bold and lovingly amiable chap. I mean, I just think. We've got to remember with Leach that how much he has battled with off-pitch stuff. So the fact that he went for 80 off 8 overs from Pant That's not going to knock him. The bloke nearly died a year ago. He had sepsis. You know, I think we can cast aside any doubts about his mental, his mental strength and, his resilience and all of that. You know, the guy has ongoing health issues. He has a number of things, He can't see for a start. Great big thick NHS specs on. They're not NHS specs, but you know what I mean.
Fucking Morrissey.
Yeah, so honestly, I don't think we need to worry about Jack Leach. And I do think you're right about Dom Bess. Dom Bess has got a lot of learning to do, and he's got a lot, and actually it's not necessarily great to do your learning on the international stage, is it? That can make or break you.
Well, that's what Root said, isn't it?
Yeah.
Root said they're learning. A lot of them are learning on the job. So yeah,
it's tough. It's really tough, and especially at the moment because they're not having warm-up matches. I mean, they're literally arriving, sitting in a hotel room playing. What is it they play? Call of Duty.
Oh, COD. Yeah, Call of Duty. Yeah,
Call of Duty, and then going and playing cricket. It's tough. It's really tough. But I think we might see in the summer when they revert back to probably one spinner in the English summer that actually Dom will be able to go to Yorkshire, and actually that won't be unhelpful for his development.
Yeah, I think.
So you think they'll go with Leach in the summer?
Well, I mean, it will all depend on form leading up to it, won't it? And neither of them, very helpfully, will be at the IPL because they're just not, they're not IPL players. So they'll have a 2-month block of county cricket. They probably won't be allowed to play all of it. They'll probably have to have some rest. But that's really helpful. Helpful for Leach to get balls under his belt at Hyderabad, at Taunton, and that would be really helpful. But equally for Dom, he'll be bowling at Headingley, and that's not spin responsive, all the time. So that will teach him how to bowl in places where it's not responsive, and actually that might help for the Ashes. So all these things are good. To be fair to England and to Ed Smith and what have you, and I'm no fan of the ECB, they can do some stupid things, but I think they're getting it right a lot. They're getting it more right than they're getting it wrong these days.
Can I just add one thing on Leach? Because I keep seeing a lot of people saying England would love to call on a Monty Panesar, but I saw this morning Jack Leach is now taking his 4th innings wickets abroad at under 20. They don't need to call on a Monty Panesar. They've got Jack Leach, and we should back him because, like you say, everything he's overcome, he's got a real thirst. He really wants the pressure. That's what you can tell about him. He wants to be England spinner, and he wants to be a match-winning spinner and on 4th innings pitches. And long may it continue because. It'd be interesting to see what he does in Australia because people keep saying you can't just go with a right arm finger spinner, but you probably can with a left arm finger spinner.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's going to be fascinating to see how England manage the next three tests. Just quickly coming back to what you said earlier about Jimmy, I think what they'll definitely want him in the 3rd test because he's a pink ball, and sometimes they can go around corners.
It's a day-nighter, isn't it?
Yeah. So it might be that we don't see Jimmy in the 2nd with a view to bringing him in with the 3rd, because with that pink ball, and I know there's not much twilight in Chennai, but it can properly go.
Just very.
It's not a bad replacement with Stuart Broad, is it? Sorry, Mark. Go on.
Just before we wrap this all up, do you want to have a quick word on how India might come back stronger? Because I just can't. I imagine there's a lot of self-reflection going on right now in that India camp.
Go on, Tommy. Say Rahane should be captain.
Well, I think we'll
clip it and we'll put it on social. Go and say it.
Yeah.
Rahane should be India captain, and I think we have discussed that.
You get your tin helmet.
It's not. It's not exactly a hot take, but no, obviously, we also have a lot of I know a lot of England fans, some weird people with motorbikes or cricket balls as their Twitter profile pictures, who hate Kohli. They just hate him with no explanation. And I spoke to one of them recently. Like people just said that they like to troll for the sake. I don't understand it. Anyway, we love him on this podcast. We think he's a genius. I think he's a genius. He's one of the greatest players I've ever seen play live. But I just let him be a batsman. I just think he's too much as a captain. Like you could see the calmness over that India team in Australia. Sorry, Indian cricket Twitter, please don't come at me, but I genuinely do believe that.
When Kohli took over, he was exactly what they needed. They were a little bit of a rabble. They were unfit. They weren't great in the field. And his standards of fitness and his intensity kind of dragged them up by their bootstraps, and got them into a much more organised, fitter, more athletic outfit. But you do wonder if perhaps his intensity is as much of a bad thing as it is a good thing. And, you know, I mean, sometimes these things kind of run their course, don't they? I'm not saying Kohli shouldn't be captain. Don't come round to my house and beat me up, Indian fans. But it's certainly an interesting how different the team felt and looked in Australia. There was a sort of serene calmness, wasn't there?
Exactly.
From that emanated from Rahane. And perhaps there was a kind of bit of maybe there's a bit of a hangover from that in this first test. Maybe there was a bit of complacency, but I think there may well have been a bit of complacency with some of the shots that they thought they could take England's spinners apart, and they thought that it'd be fairly straightforward to take Leach and Bess apart, and it's turning out to be not quite that straightforward.
Definitely. I wonder with Kohli, though, how easily he'd drop back into the ranks. I think some players can do it, but with his personality, how can he suddenly just go back in as a bat? I think, and that takes some huge management as well.
And I'll tell you
national
what,
crisis, I think. Yeah.
Well, I was just about to say, with this whole farmers' protest, the largest protest in the world going on in Delhi right now, of all time, I think the last thing India needs as a nation is to decide to change its captain.
Yeah. Let's perhaps
really
not rock
point.
the boat so much at the moment, but you know you can see in the future a point where he becomes white ball captain only. You know, like England do. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, there's a lot to be said for it, and I think the split captaincy is a lot behind the success of England in the last few years.
100%. 100%.
And he's a dad now, and he's going to want to spend a bit more time at home with his family as he naturally should. So, maybe.
It's a big loss, though, marketing wise for cricket if Kohli decides to call it a day for Test cricket.
Well, as I often say,
which I know is probably far away, but I mean that'd be massively a bad move for Test cricket.
My brother who works, the one I was talking about, works for New Balance. He always says like Virat Kohli's like more marketable than Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi, purely because of that Indian market. You know, you've got billion people population, half of whom are heavily invested in cricket. He's bigger than the Prime Minister, bigger than anything there, isn't he? So I don't think it's going to happen, especially anytime soon. But yeah, I'm just saying hypothetically. But either way, he's not a bad captain to have.
Also, I think, you know, let's not write him off. They bounced back from 36 all out, didn't they? So you know,
it'll be 3-1.
This series could be lively, but it's certainly interesting in terms of if England do manage to win 3-1 or 3-0 even in India, and then are in the World Test Championship final, sort of kind of by the back door, really. And for England, that matters. The World Test Championship final matters. You know, it's in England, and it's a sort of, if you win it, it's a trophy, isn't it, for the cabinet?
And the first one ever, yeah.
Yeah, and it might be the last as well.
As much as a Sri Lanka fan, I'm loath to say this. It's much better for the tournament if India, Australia, or England win it, right? Opposed to New Zealand, because if it does, it just gets sidelined and it kind of gets forgotten about a little bit. Where if the English press or Australian press or Indian press spend the next however long to the next tournament talking it up, then it's got a lot more validity to it.
Yeah,
that's just my take. I could be I hope I'm totally wrong.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure an Australia-New Zealand match in England, they're completely the wrong time zone for their fans, is quite what the ICC were looking for. So I think they'll be hoping that it will be England or India who face up against New Zealand. But yeah, it might be the last one. So we better relish it, this weird tournament.
Sorry, I'm the one who's just said I've got a COVID test. I've got to go. Why might it be the last one? Quickly.
Well, the new ICC chairman, who was from New Zealand cricket, has basically said it's not fit for purpose and it needs redesigning. The trouble is that it's impossible to design a Test championship in a way that's equitable when you've got different lengths of series, and you know there's no easy way to solve it. I get the sense that it might just be quietly forgotten after this one.
Yeah, isn't the reason for that because of the way it's laid out? Effectively, there's only the lack of Test cricket some Test nations play. Really, only England, Australia, India, New Zealand, and South Africa could ever realistically qualify for it, right?
Yeah, and you know it's all skewed by the fact that India never play Pakistan. So I mean, you get to the final and you're not actually seeing the best. Yeah. You know, it's not necessarily the best two sides, is it? Because everyone's been tested against everyone in every condition. So it's weird.
Cool. Anyway, let's leave it there, guys. Thanks a lot. If you want to get in touch with us, on hashtag Uncle Johnson, and obviously we're on, what is it,
Trending
Twitter,
right now,
Facebook,
isn't it? Trending
Instagram.
right now at Uncle Johnson.
Is it? Yes.
Worldwide,
yeah, it is.
worldwide. In Iceland or Malaysia. Oh, thank you to all our Malaysian contingent, because we're the #1 cricket podcast in Malaysia. To all 7 of you listening, we love you.
And third most popular sports podcast there.
Cheers.
See ya. Well, I'll just end it there.